Hi, y'all. Happy Lent to all those who practice it. For me, Lent is such a special time of the year when I really try to get back to my spiritual roots if I've wandered away. I've definitely, the past few months, I've really been slacking when it comes to my faith life and spirituality. Like, I've got my altar back here that I used to use back when I lived in Louisville. I prayed at it every night and read scripture every night and connected with God and my community of saints every night. And nowadays, it's only a few times a week that I get around to doing that. So, Lent is my time to say, there's something missing in my life right now. There's stuff I gotta do, and things that maybe I'm gonna take a pause from so that I have the time and the energy to really connect with God and creation and the human community a bit more. So one thing I thought I might do in this special time is to just have little videos where I chat and ramble on about whatever. Normally, when I make videos, I like make a big deal about it. I have like pages of notes about what I want to remember to say. So I thought maybe I would do some more casual videos this Lent where I just chat, and I would love to hear people respond. And so my first chatting video, like they still have topics. I'm not gonna go that buck wild on y'all. I'm definitely gonna still have topics to these things. And the topic for this casual video is the poem that I wrote. Well, I wrote it last year, but I posted it on Instagram and Tumblr yesterday, and I had a lot of positive feedback. A lot of people really liked it. It's a poem that I think I wrote last about Ash Wednesday, about being dust. When I went to post it yesterday, I edited it a bit. The second verse of this poem that I wrote gave me pause when I looked at it for the first time in a year yesterday. It's about, well, I'll read it to y'all, and then I'll tell you why it gave me pause to look at it and be like, wait, I wrote that? I don't know if I believe that. If I am stepped on, it is no humiliation. And maybe the foot that smashes will carry me down paths unknown to worlds surprising. And the poem goes on from there, but that's the part that really gave me pause because it sounds like I'm cool with the fact that I'm getting stepped on. And I'm normally the kind of person who's like, if you or other people you see are getting oppressed, you got to stand up for that. You got to fight back. You got to be vocal. You got to help people out. Oppression is always bad. And so to see that I have this verse where it sounds like I'm sort of drawing something good out of oppression gave me pause. So I was trying to remember back in my head, like, what was I thinking when I wrote this verse last year? And one thing I do remember, the beginning where it says, if I am stepped on, it is no humiliation. I think I got that from reading Howard Thurman's book, Jesus and the Disinherited, which is a very thin little book that I highly recommend you read if you haven't. But every time I read something by him, I'm transformed a little bit. My imagination um, is extended and my vision of God is broadened. Boris and George never want to stay on the dang wall. Guys, please stay on the wall. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, Howard Thurman, Jesus and the Disinherited. What he's doing in that book is talking about, like, who is God for the people whose backs are against the wall, such as the African American community. What what richness, what worth do they find in the religion of the oppressor when Christianity has been co-opted and is misused by white supremacists and evangelicals and the U.S. People in the U.S. government? Why would Black people be part of that? And his book is a response to that, saying that Jesus is one of the oppressed. Jesus was a member of the disinherited. Thurman also talks about how he has these ideas for what are some of the like remedies for oppression. And one thing he talks about in the book is this idea about humility versus humiliation. It feels very Catholic to me. He was not Catholic. I forget what he is. Maybe Baptist. Not what I am. Not Presbyterian and not Catholic. But very cool. Yeah, he says that humility. If you have humility, it's not allowing yourself to be humiliated, but it means that no one can humiliate you. They can try when your violent oppressors do everything they can to humiliate you. If you have this humility and this surety in yourself and who you are in the eyes of God, they will not succeed in humiliating you, in quelling your spirit. And so I think that's what I was thinking when I wrote that, the whole, what was it? If I am stepped on, it is no humiliation. I was thinking of that. Um, but then I add, and maybe the foot that smashes will carry me down paths unknown to worlds surprising. And I'm just like, that makes it sound like it's okay that they did the oppression thing because, hey, maybe it'll make me a better person. So I'm glad I got oppressed. I'm so glad that people get oppressed because it gives them a chance. That suffering and that violence gives them the chance to blossom into the beautiful flowers they are. I don't believe that. I do not believe that oppression is ever good. I do believe that we always must fight tooth and nail against it, that God commands us to fight injustice and oppression wherever we see it. That's a theme throughout the Bible. There's always this idea that we must fight oppression wherever we see it, and it is never okay, and it is never willed by God. That is, maybe that again is just the Catholic in me. But I remember reading in my catechism when I was a little child, that God permits but never causes evil, which is different than other Christians' point of view about evil, and that's fine. That's valid and all that. But for me, I don't see God as ever causing evil to happen, even though God can take bad things that happen that humans do to each other, and God can draw good fruit out of that. And God empowers us as human beings made in God's image. God empowers us to do the same. Horrible things can happen, evil things can happen, and God did not will those, and God does not condone those things, and we must fight against them. But when they happen, there is something incredibly beautiful and powerful and impossible about the fact that some of us take those horrible events and make something beautiful, rise from the rubble of that evil. That is an incredible and powerful thing. And it reminds me of Jesus's own experience on the cross, which is what Lent is leading up to, right? Is Jesus's suffering and death on the cross, something that I do not believe was willed by God, but it was something that obviously God knew was coming. We see that in the agony in the garden. Jesus knows it's coming. He knows what's about to happen to him, and probably, for there's this idea that we kind of see in the Gospels and the epistles and stuff that, probably from the very start, God knew that the person of God who would become Jesus, who is always Jesus, whatever, Trinity talk. It's always, it's impossible not to get your speech tangled when you're talking about the Trinity. Anyway, the person of God, who is Jesus, would die on that cross. And that was something that is probably known by God from the start, whatever the start means when you're a timeless being, whatever. But that doesn't mean it was something that God made happen. It was just something that God knew was a natural consequence of the sin and the oppression that was going on in the world that God was born into. The Middle East, Palestine, being when it was under Roman rule, was a place where someone like Jesus would end up dead on a cross. That doesn't mean God wanted it to happen, but it happened. When Jesus says things, and I'm going to go on a tangent and I'm going to try not to, but I'm really big on the whole idea that when Jesus says things like, if you want to follow me, you must pick up your cross and follow me. That's not saying it's the cross, it's the suffering that God gave you to bear. No, it's the suffering, it's the cross that your fellow human beings give you to bear, and you yourself in your own sin give you to bear. And you have to bear it because you have to fight against it, and you also have to sort of show the world, and bearing it, and letting it be very visible. You are exposing the evil to the evildoers. You are showing them that you won't be cowed, you won't be humiliated by what they're doing to you. You will fight back. And when it's impossible, when you're just not powerful enough on your own to fight back against them, when the boot smashes you, that foot that smashes, it's not a humiliation to you, it's not a failing on your part, and it might bring something good. It shouldn't have happened, God didn't will it to happen, but it might bring something beautiful, just like the cross brought something beautiful. Sorry about the noises. My cat Nerys is trying to get my attention by chewing on cardboard. But anyway, to me, that's the cross, right? That it, through it, God took this symbol of torture and death and turned it into a symbol of life and solidarity with the suffering of the world. That's what Lent is all about, taking these symbols that are supposed to be about death and saying, yeah, they are about death. You are dust. Remember, you are dust. You are going to die. You are temporary. And yet, we're heading somewhere where that dust is splendor. And God will continue to transform that dust in new and exciting ways and empowers us to do the same. So wow, this ramble got long. I thought these little chats were going to be like 5 minutes, but of course not, because I'm me. It's going to be long. Sorry. Hey, you guys, want to see my muscles? Oh, yeah, can't really. But I've been working out, guys. I think my left one's bigger. I've been working out with like 9-pound weights. Whoa. So now I'm really strong. Sorry, that got weird. But that's nice, like casual chats, fun chats. Please tell me what you think about this idea of taking the oppression we face and absolutely continuing to fight it. But this idea that when it happens to us, sometimes we can make something good come of it. Not always, but there are many instances where people take the suffering that's happened to them and used it to sort of transform themselves in really powerful ways. So if you have examples of that or pushbacks against that, or you agree with it, whatever, I'd love to hear about it. Talk to me, guys. Okay,